Ever feel like you're going through the motions, like you're celebrating little wins but not really feeling them?
Mm, I think we've all been there.
Right. Well, today we're diving into a coaching session that gets into exactly that.
Oh, interesting. What's the setup?
So we're going to be kind of eavesdropping on a conversation between this coach, Lynne Durham, and her client.
I love those behind-the-scenes glimpses. You can learn so much.
Totally. And this one is full of these really relatable moments about how we see ourselves, how we see other people.
Yeah, those dynamics can be fascinating. How does it start?
So the client is mentioning some good things going on, like catching up with an old friend, her mom getting back from a trip.
Okay, those everyday wins.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. She's talking about her mom's trip and how she wants to tell her how proud she is of her independence.
That's sweet. Wanting to celebrate her mom's accomplishments.
Yeah, but listening to them talk, you realize it's not just about expressing pride, there's something more to it.
I see. What is it?
It's like she wants to affirm her mom's abilities, not just validate what she did.
Wow, that's a good distinction.
Right. And thankfully, Lynn, the coach, picks up on this.
Oh, I like where this is going. So how does Lynn explain it?
She talks about the difference between validation and affirmation. Like, we often want to validate someone's actions. Good job on that trip.
Right. We acknowledge what they did.
Exactly. But what they might really need is to hear, wow, you are so capable and independent to travel by yourself. You see, affirming who they are.
It's empowering future action, building that self-belief.
Yes. And this isn't just about the client, her mom. It's relevant to all our relationships, right?
Oh, absolutely. Have you ever caught yourself wanting validation when what you really craved was someone to say, hey, you've got this?
All the time. And this whole thing about how our perceptions change, it comes up again when the client starts talking about her boss.
What's going on with the bod?
She says it's like he's losing his shine.
Losing his shine, huh? That's an interesting way to put it.
Right. And it made me think, in the beginning, we can be blinded by someone's, I don't know, perceived brilliance. But as we grow, we see them differently.
It's like that honeymoon phase in any relationship, right? Whether it's romantic, a friendship, even a work thing. At first, we don't see the flaws. We're caught up in the novelty of it all.
Totally. And then as we mature, gain more experience.
Our own confidence grows.
Exactly. And the playing field levels, suddenly we see things more clearly.
It's not that the other person changed. It's our perspective that shifted.
Like that saying, can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. As we grow, we step outside our old perceptions. Boom, new perspective. And we start to notice things we didn't before.
And this whole perspective shift, it's not just about bosses. It's every relationship, every dynamic, really.
Which actually leads perfectly to the next part of the coaching session. This is when it gets super relatable. She starts talking about her boss's habit of interrupting. It's like he can't help but turn every conversation into a teachable moment.
Oh, I know the type.
Right. Even in client meetings, he's got to jump in with his own stories, his advice.
It's like some people need to constantly validate their own experience, you know?
Yes. And it's at the expense of really listening to the other person. And in this case, she's worried her boss is actually hurting the client experience by doing this.
Makes
Like, let the client have their moment.
For sure.
But anyway, this is where Lynn's coaching gets really interesting.
Oh, how so?
So instead of telling her to, confront him about it, she offers this reframing technique.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
She calls it the no lesson, just listen mantra.
No lesson, just listen.
Yeah. It's so good. She tells her client to imagine whispering this phrase to her boss.
She wants her to actually say that.
No, not literally. More like a way to shift her own energy around it.
Oh, I get it.
Inject a little humor into it.
Instead of just getting annoyed.
Exactly.
It's like silently taking back your power.
Yes. Because you're not letting that person, control the conversation.
You're choosing how you respond.
And that can actually help you stay more present, more engaged.
Because you're not getting pulled into the negativity.
Right. Which made me think, could we all use a little no less than just listen in our lives?
I'm sure we could.
Picture this. You're in a meeting, someone's going off on a tangent, and you're just silently repeating that phrase to yourself.
Like a mental reset button.
Totally. And get this, Lynn takes it even further.
What do you mean?
She asks her client to imagine how the client might be feeling when the boss is going on and on.
Interesting. Why does she do that?
Because it changes the whole dynamic.
How so?
It's not me versus them anymore. It's like
Right.
maybe they're both on the same page.
Interesting.
Like maybe the client is also wishing he would just listen.
Makes you think.
It's like they're both stuck in that moment together.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
And maybe there's a little humor in that shared experience, you know?
Yeah, totally. And the best part, she hasn't said anything to the boss directly.
Right. It's all about how she's seeing it.
It's about giving her the tools to handle it, not about changing him.
I love that. So what's Lynn's advice? What should she do?
So Lynn says sometimes it's about finding that internal detachment.
Okay, so not getting caught up in it.
Right. Find the humor. Remember, it's not always about us.
Yeah.
Maybe the boss just loves to hear himself talk.
And that's okay.
Exactly. We choose how we react.
So by choosing humor, she can stay present with the client, which is what really matters.
Yes. And isn't it interesting how this all comes back to perceptions changing?
Yeah, totally. Like as we grow, we see our relationships, the people in our lives in a different light.
We see them more clearly. It's not about good or bad. It's just evolution.
Which makes me wonder, is someone really losing their shine, or are we just seeing them more clearly as we change?
Right. It's a good question to ask ourselves.
It really is. And hey, maybe if we all embraced a little no lesson, just listen now and then.
The world would be a more peaceful place.
Right. A little more understanding, a little more connection.
And definitely a little more laughter along the way.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, that's a wrap on this deep dive.